Hello, my name is Ebenezer Ogbu, and I just want to share my experience on how I got into technology. Some time ago, I got interested in knowing about how businesses work generally. So I was reading business books, but the problem I encountered while reading those business books was that they keep mentioning about software technologies, information systems, how these items are used to support the business, to support businesses. So during the course of reading those business books and doing my research on business studies, I felt a bit inadequate in the sense that I was like thinking I needed to know about software to effectively understand, the books I was reading. So I felt I just decided to go learn software. Then when I made the decision to go learn software, the question now was, I don't really know anything about software, though I've done some little bit of work but I didn't really know much about the industry. I decided to go do some research about what happens within the industry. So in the course of my research about the software development industry, I got to know about the whole aspect of software development. Like I got to know about the UX design, user interface and user experience design, and the user interface and user experience designer. I got to know about the split within the software industry of like the front end part, this back end software development part, and the database aspect and the deployment of your application to the hosting environment. I got to know about all those bits and pieces. Also, I got to know about the development language and the framework you use within each of these divisions. So the question now was for me, how do I learn? We have so many things within to learn. How do I go about learning this stuff? So what I did was I decided to, another thing I noticed within the industry was that to do back end, you need to do front end, you need to know like your JavaScript, your HTML, your CSS. And all these things build on top of each other, like your CSS builds on top of HTML. That is to say, you need to have your HTML before you do CSS. And that your JavaScript works on top of HTML and CSS. That is the front end JavaScript. So I decided, okay, what I will do is to start from scratch. So I started learning HTML. I read books by John Duckett. I used a very nice book. So I finished his book and his book on HTML and CSS. I then moved over to JavaScript. And he has a book on JavaScript as well. I used his JavaScript book just to familiarize myself with JavaScript, how to do JavaScript. It was easy doing JavaScript because I had already done CSS and HTML. And most of the things we do with JavaScript will always make reference to HTML and CSS. So when I finished doing JavaScript, I felt I needed to learn some back-end language. And with the research I did, it happens that PHP was kind of like the favorite. So I tried to look at materials on PHP. I found the one by this lady, Julia Meloni. She has a book on PHP. So I used her book. She did so many tiny back-end stuff, applications that really introduced me to PHP, how to do PHP programming, how to connect your PHP to the database. It was really very important because that was when I got to know about your MySQL database. And of course, in the course of her reading her books, she introduced me to all the frameworks you use for your PHP application, like your Zen framework and your, is it Cupcake or something? So these are some of the frameworks. And I also was able to learn how to install the XAMPP stack, the XAMPP server on my computer. So that got me into back-end programming. It was really very interesting because I was able to now see how my front end fits with the back end, So it was really very exciting for it, doing PhD. But I just felt I needed something more. After doing her training, I felt I needed something more. That led me to doing additional research. I got to know, I saw something on PHP, on C Sharp. I saw a material on C Sharp, a book on C Sharp by Chris Love. And I just felt, it kind of like felt a bit far more comprehensive than what I've done with Julia Meloni and PHP. And I started developing interest in Microsoft Stack. Then I started doing some research on Microsoft Stack. Before I got to, I didn't quite get to read Chris Love's book, but I got this book by Jack Podio. Jack Podio is an author. He wrote a book on object-oriented programming. I needed to learn object-oriented programming. So, but I was interested in his book because he was doing it with C Sharp. So I started reading his book. I bought his book, started reading his book, and in the course of reading his book, I saw another. That was when MVC, ASP.NET Core MVC was kind of started being in vogue. That was the time when MVC was gaining popularity. I saw a book by, William Spembati? That's the name of the guy. So, and I quite got interested in the book because he promised to cover everything end to end. So I said I must read this book. I bought the book. I started reading the book. I followed him step by step. We built an e-commerce site. That was the first project, end-to-end e-commerce site. And with the instruction in the book, I was able to deploy the application to the cloud. So I was able to build end-to-end from both front and back end database, and deploy the application to the cloud. And I felt very excited and elated as well. But that was my first full-scale end-to-end application that I've built. I was very happy. I showed my friends the application. But I needed to know more about MVC. I needed to know more about MVC. I continued with my research. I stumbled upon a book by Adam Freeman. It was Adam Freeman that opened my eyes to everything about MVC. And, I bought the book, Adam Freeman. He has so many books. I bought the book, his ASP.NET Core MVC book. ASP MVC book. I bought the book. It was really, I read the book end to end. I did his classical e-commerce project, and I followed him and deployed the project to the cloud, to Azure Cloud. So making it my second application I have built and deployed to the cloud. So I felt very well, and I read the book end to end. It was like 700 and something pages. I read it end to end. So. Yeah, I got to know about all the secret, all the whole internal working of ASP.NET Core. ASP.NET MVC. So after learning, I started applying for jobs. I registered with all these online freelancing platforms. I started applying for jobs. Yeah, but at the same time, I felt I needed to take my game to the next level. Because then I started reading about domain-driven development. Which was kind of like a software development methodology that was developed by this guy, Eric Evans. Because I felt that should be when I did the research, I felt this should be the way we should develop our software. So I started doing some research, and then my research led me to, I bought his book, but I couldn't go straight into it. I needed something that will show me the practical aspect of domain-driven development. That was how I got to, I got into contact with the book by Scott Millett. Scott Millett is one of the British top developers. I bought his book. I think Professional ASP.NET Core. It talks about applying all the whole design patterns and domain-driven development. It was domain-driven development that actually got me interested in his book. I bought the book. I read a little bit about all the whole design patterns, but I went straight to, in his book, there is this from chapter 10 of his book to chapter 14. He built a large-scale enterprise-grade full-scale end-to-end application using domain-driven development. So I read the book, and I followed through the project. But what I did with the project was, instead of building the front end with the way he did it, I decided to build the front end using Knockout.js. That was my first foray on the front end frameworks. So I used Knockout.js for the project. It worked very well. In fact, most of the jobs I was applying for, I was showcasing that particular. Okay. So after going through his book and developing that particular project, what I did was, I decided, because I had this project I was having in mind to build, I started to build my project based on Scott Millet's approach. Scott Millet, that's the guy's name. He's a top. If you search for him online, you see his on LinkedIn. You see his profile. So I decided to start building. My project was, the project I've been developing was, I think it's an e-commerce. I'm still working on the project. It's a logistics application. So I decided to build that logistic application based on Scott Millet's approach. And what happened was that after building that initial prototype of that logistic application, just basic stuff, I started using those projects, those area of projects I built to apply for jobs, really, So I kind of like, I didn't deploy them to GitHub, because I don't want my applications to be, my prototype to be public, So, but what I did was to capture the screenshots. So if I apply for a job, I will say, okay, look at the screenshot of those applications. And that was how I got my first job with Upwork. I got my first job with Upwork, worked with Upwork, finished that first job, got other jobs, and kind of like, in the process, I was also developing myself, building enough knowledge, developing myself with regards to software design architecture, software design enterprise architecture. I started developing, and I went back to my origin, which was business, because it was business that brought me to software. When I mastered software, I went back to business. Okay, how do I link business to software? I started reading about business requirement, business analysis, use case design, just reading generally about business analysis and all the rest. So the result is that I understand business, how business work. I also understand how to build software that support businesses. So it was quite an exciting journey. And today I'm a full stack developer, enterprise architect, software architect, data machine learning expert, and I have a startup called Celgos Technologies, where I intend to kind of like use the platform to offer my services to clients. So to summarize, I'm a full stack developer, competent in my main technology stack is ASP.NET Core. ASP.NET Core. I use ASP.NET Core to build MVC application, to build microservices applications, to build I use Python for that. But ASP.NET Core is my main stack. ASP.NET Core, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, C#, Azure DevOps, and Azure Cloud Services. So these are the things I'm very comfortable with, I'm very competent with. So if you have any need for a software developer, don't hesitate to reach out to me. In fact, I need clients for my Celgos technology company that I'm trying to build up. Yeah. So I think that is my journey so far in software development. It has been very exciting. It has practically exposed me to the world generally. You get to know about so many things. Because you can talk about software without talking about Microsoft, without talking about Bill Gates. You can talk about software without talking about the legendary Steve Jobs. You can talk about software without talking about Elon Musk. You can talk about software without talking about Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Zuck. So, and the thing is, if learning about these guys expose you to their way of thinking, to their general approach to life, and expose you to other things as well. So it kind of like getting into software development broadened my horizon. It exposed me to a lot of things in life, and I'm very grateful for that. And I also want to use the opportunity to thank those guys I read their books, because they actually held my hand when I was actually learning the skill set. So I think that is it. Thank you very much.